Good afternoon, everybody. Now, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. It is the Labor Management Committee meeting. It is continuing from the previous meeting of February 22nd, 2023. So I'd like to reconvene it. It is February 24th at about 3:03.
Yes.
Could you please call the roll?
Gums,
Gums here.
Caius,
Vice President.
Kenyon, Molina,
Molina present.
Pirag,
Present.
you have quorum.
Very good. And be it noted that we have quite a few people in attendance as well, anxiously listening to probably the results of our discussion today. So welcome all.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome to all of our board members who are attending. This was before, I'd like to just give you an update, and I've spoken to some of you, but just so we all hear the same words. I did speak with State's Attorney Mosser earlier today about a request, the resolution that is being presented, to get some background and some explanation. As you know, we've been going through a transition here with our civil, with Michelle Neerman leaving. I've not been able to, nor has the board been able to have a full opportunity to reflect on all of this, and this came relatively quickly. So yesterday, I was able to ask and get some independent research that I was able to acquire to get some further understanding of the nature of the request and the charge that was put forth upon this committee. One question, as you all know, if you do your, everyone here who does research, tumbles into another question, tumbles into another question, and there's a variety of different approaches on how you make an answer, get it up to a real answer. And frankly, the questions are still tumbling. Since I am not a trained attorney, trained in many other things, but I'm not an attorney, I don't have the full breadth of knowledge of law, of Illinois state law, nor code, and I always relied on one of our ASAs or a state's attorney for that advice. So I do have more questions about the validity of the Section 7 that was brought forward, which was just presented to me just a few minutes ago with a revised version of Illinois CS 315 Illinois Public Labor Relations Act, which literally I just received, which I've not had the opportunity to review because it is happening so quickly. I also, and I think I can speak for the entire board, certainly I think I can speak for this entire committee, that we support you. We, as a board, we understand the concerns you have and the needs you have to support your family, to make an appropriate wage. I own that. I personally respect it, and as I respect each one of you. And I mean that from the sincerity of my heart and from my will and from my courage to have this move forward. I know you have waited a very, very long time for this, and you have growing frustrations that you feel that you have been ignored. But the process and procedure that has to take place cannot happen overnight. And to you, it's not overnight. But we have only really started directing this and taking a look at it for the last year and a half. And during that period of time, we are making great progress in moving payroll equity forward across our 1,300 employees, you being a portion of that. So whatever the outcome of today's discussion is, that effort will continue. It will continue to the best of our financial ability, It will certainly continue with this will of both this committee, the Finance Committee, HR, as well as the full board, because we respect you. We want to make sure that you have an appropriate and equitable salary. And we're doing everything we possibly can to move that forward. But we have to build the framework to have that happen. So that is a promise that I am making to all of you. Now, I'd like to get some comments from some of our other board members so you can hear that their feelings are, I hope, pretty much the same. And then we can make a decision on what we're going to be doing with this resolution, which is the cause of this meeting. I do believe that we may have an opportunity to have some other opinions to help guide us through this document that I just received. But if I can go out of order for just a little bit, I really would like to be able to get the voice of our fellow members of this committee. So, Mr. Kenyon, what are your insights on this?
Well, I was a little surprised at last meeting. It's a lot of money, and you were part of the budget process in the beginning. And I thought it was a full court press. And I was a little bit surprised because I hadn't seen anything like that in my experience. So I'm not sure we need to rush into it, but I agree with the chairman, though she maybe has to have some advice for somebody, you know, what to do. We don't have the money on, you know, I hate to say this, but on the farm, if you don't have the money, you don't buy it unless you can borrow it. And we're not very good at borrowing. We can't do that right away. Long term, we might have to. Or more taxes. That's what it's going to lead to.
And to respond to that,
Before, let the board members all speak, and then we'll certainly give you a place, an opportunity to talk without question, Ms. Mosser. Ms. Gumbs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think at the beginning of our meeting last, whatever day it was ago, I can't keep anything straight these days. My position has not changed. You spoke very clearly, Madam Chair, and I thank you for your thoughtfulness in that. It's a position I would never want to choose, and so thank you for that. I've had conversations with many of the board members over this topic. Certainly there has to be a thoughtful process in this. We only have so much money. We also have to address the big elephant in the room. Mr. Kenyon, said that icky word, taxes, maybe some other solutions, but I stand firm and I will not waver on, if we cannot take care of our employees, then we're certainly not serving our county. So we've got a lot of work to do. We got to get that courage going, and I haven't changed my position.
Thank you. Ms. Molina?
okay,
Issues.
apologies for that. Thank you. I guess I just like to start with saying that in the last few years, this county board has done a tremendous job and endeavor in taking on problems that prior administrations decided not to. When it comes to the state's attorney's office in 2020, the budget that was allocated from the general fund was $5.7 million towards the state's attorney's office. In 2023, that amount has doubled. The state's attorney's office has been allocated to receive $10.16 million. So I think we've been good partners with our state's attorney, and we understand the endeavor that she has and the intent she has for our county. In saying that, we also have the 1,300 other employees that we have to take into consideration. And while we don't have any power over how our state's attorney or any other elected official spends their funding once they receive their general fund allocation, we do have to think about the ripple effect on the rest of our board and our rest of our departments. Ms. Labrillo has undergone this massive endeavor since the beginning of last year to do equity studies and wages for all of our employees. That is underway. The amount of money that's being allocated on this in this resolution takes away that money that we decided to put aside for everyone. So I'm against using those funds for one particular department. Again, I understand where we all are. I understand the amount of pressure that this inflation has caused all of us, that this post-pandemic is causing all of us. As a person who works 3 jobs basically to put food on their table, I understand where a lot of our employees are and the pressure they have financially. And I just ask that we all remain a little bit more patient. I think we're able to find a compromise for everybody, but this resolution is not it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Caius.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for being here. I applaud the sacrifices that you've made in your position with the county and what you've contributed to the county. I know we work with you guys almost every day, and I always admire how well you guys perform your jobs. And I am embarrassed that we are in a position we're in, that we are not paying our staff, including you, but in the entire county. We have to take the whole county into account, all of our employees. Frankly, I just have a lot of questions about the numbers that are presented and what the effect will be on the process. We have a procedure when we're in this Labor Relations Committee that we actually rely on you, the state's attorney, when it comes to the union. So we have a established procedure, how we talk to you, talk to the negotiators who talk to us, and we arrive at a really well-informed position, or at least the figures that we can pass on to a committee like the Finance Committee and say, this is where we stand on this. These make sense, or this is the background that we can give you. Right now, as far as the proposal that has been presented, I feel really uncomfortable. I really, like I said, I'm embarrassed that we're taking so long, and I understand. And it's frustrating with the county, everything with government moving so slowly. But I want to make sure that the steps that we make sense. So I'm not sure that this is the proper way. I think that pushing it is really important. I admire that you are pushing it. We need to push it. We need to accomplish this. We need to make sure that everyone is paid equitably. And we rely on you daily. So it's really important that we do this. I want to make sure that as we proceed, we have all the information we can get, and it makes sense for the entire county that we go ahead. So with that, I guess
Thank you.
we'll talk over where we're going to go with this.
If I may take the liberty of this committee, I'd like to bring up Mr. Shepro, and he has had a cursory review. I've asked him to take a look at this for me personally. Would you feel comfortable? Okay, that'll be fine. I respect that, because he literally just got these documents as well. Very good. That I can respect. Just one other speaker then. Ms. Labrillo, would you mind coming up and just give a quick overview of how the work is happening on the equity study? Because that was something that I spoke about with our state's attorney earlier today.
Certainly. We have begun our process of making a review with each department. We do have about 26 departments that we're working through, and a little over halfway through those departments. The Human Resources Department, me and a member of my staff sit down with each department. We review every non-union position with them, and we are looking at assigning grade levels. Our project is designed to reach internal equity within the county so that we have a framework and a method to compare other positions within the county to positions in different departments in a way that makes sure that we are paying similarly situated individuals in the same manner. Once this project is complete, we will use all the money that is available and allocated by the board. We did come up with an estimate, which was 2.7 million, and the board determined to allocate that over a period of 3 years. So $900,000 was allocated for this year. And upon completion of the project, and once we determine ranges, that will be presented to the board for their approval, and then the money will be allocated to the departments accordingly with an effective date of December 1st. So it'll be an annualized amount so that department heads and elected officials can make the raises that they make retroactive to December 1st. The other component of this is as we do make those raises, once we determine the ranges and appropriate salaries for the various positions, we will be making an effort in the first year to bring those that are the farthest point behind. So the farthest percentage behind the target salary that we've determined will be given more in the first year to make sure that we are bringing it from those that are farthest behind equity up quicker.
So I just some clarification of that, because we have all of our state's attorneys here. If they are, we're working on internal equity and their request is for external equity. If it is shown that internally, there may be some equity adjustments, which I'm sure there will be, certainly for staff. But if it also appears that they externally do not meet, how should I say this? If our current internal pay seems to be equitable, whatever that may be, hypothetically, but externally, it is not competitive. Will we make those adjustments appropriately within that allocated money?
Once we have the framework in place, we will be able to make recommendations for bringing all employees to external equity in the same manner. So for example, the board can choose how much money they have available to contribute to salaries. And then that money can be distributed in an equitable way across all departments. That will alleviate the need for individual departments to come and argue their cases for additional funding for the board. The board would then be able to determine at what level it can fund salaries, and that money can be distributed among the departments according to the pay scales that are in place. We will continue to advocate for external equity. We can use a various number of comparisons, and then the board can determine the comparison that it feels is most appropriate for Kane County, and it can then apply it to all departments.
But some would be more unique than others as far as external equity.
I'm personally of the belief that all departments are entitled to the same external equity.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, Ms. Mosser.
Can I just ask a quick question for Ms. Labrillo? I know that you are still in the midst of everything, and we had a fantastic discussion yesterday. From what you found out so far, is it fair to state that the SAO internally is pretty significantly behind other county departments?
In my initial estimates, as we looked through, yes, there were a handful of departments that were farther behind internal equity than others, and the state's attorney was one of those. I do expect them to receive a significant portion of the money that was allocated for equity adjustments.
And how soon, because you see the anxious look on all these people's faces, how soon can that study be completed?
We're hoping to have the first round of meetings completed by the middle of March, in which case at that point, we will have a much better, much more firm estimate. If you remember, the original estimate was made with a very short time period in which to put all the positions into an estimated grade. Those estimates were based largely on title, which does not always accurately reflect the significance of the position. So as we have these meetings, we are getting a better look, a more careful review of the job descriptions to make sure that the jobs are in the correct category. And once we complete that full review with each of the department heads, we'll have a much better estimate. So I'm hoping to have that much better estimate available to the Human Services Committee in the April Human Services Committee meeting. And then as we progress, we will have second meetings with everybody just to make sure that even with those initial estimates, everything is still correct, and make any minor adjustments that might need to be made at that point, and hopefully have solid numbers available in May.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Quite a bit of work to get done in a short period of time. And one last question, since the state's attorney is here. Will the department heads or elected officials have an opportunity to review your analysis before it goes to the full board for their consent to get their input on it, just to make sure that they're in agreement with some of the grading?
Yes, a second meeting will be conducted with every department head and elected official who has participated, in which we will go over those final numbers. So we do have and have communicated to each person that we have met with that we will be having a follow-up meeting once we have completed our first round.
And the money will be distributed retroactively.
It will be distributed with an effective date of 12/1. So all of the dollar amounts will be annualized so that the department head or elected official may make that raise effective 12/1 of 22.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before I go into mine, I did ask the sheriff to come here to talk about the effect the turnover in my office has on our criminal justice system. If we can go ahead and have him discuss that.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome, Sheriff Hayne.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for having me here today. I am honored to stand in front of some of the smartest minds in Kane County here behind me that work for the state's attorney's office, and I mean that sincerely. This is my 29th year wearing a uniform and serving this community. Last night at about 12:30 in the morning, my deputies engaged in a pursuit with a homicide suspect out of DeKalb County. They successfully laid their lives on the line, brought him into custody, and he is now facing justice. Over the last month, State's Attorney Mosser and I have brought in 5 different child sex offenders who are actively targeting our children in our community on the internet. And we would not be able to do any of this work in uniform if it was not for her and these folks. This is critical. We are a team and they have to be properly compensated. So looking at that bottom line on that resolution, for the value that they bring to everyone's public safety, this is essential. And when my deputies have to call for felony screening or work with the state's attorney to get proper criminal charges to bring someone to justice, and when they pick up the phone the next time and it's somebody brand new because that other person of high value left us because we just couldn't pay them a few extra $1,000, those charges don't go through. That case is not properly prosecuted. So this is critical to me, my office, and police departments across Kane County. So I want to thank State's Attorney Mosser for inviting me here this afternoon, but sincerely, I hope we can all work together to get this done because these folks deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I wrote some notes down as everybody was going because I want to address everything. And I want this board to understand that I'm not asking for a quick and speedy process. I'm asking for this process to start. Because the unfortunate nature is it has been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back for a valid reason. We don't have the money. And I do understand that. We have different positions. Your position is the county board, and you have to do what is in the best interest of this county. And I understand all of that. And part of that is figuring out how to spend our money and how to get more money when possible. And I understand being a person who lives in this community that every single time somebody says, I'm going to raise your taxes, or I'm going to add a gas tax or a sales tax or whatever that is, that affects our entire community. And I understand every single part of that. But what I want you to understand is the reason why I'm doing this is not taking aside the fact that I am the state's attorney for this county, which means that I'm the state's attorney for every single person in this county. I'm also their boss. And as their boss, I have to advocate for them. And that means bringing forth very difficult discussions. And I understand this. For the past 2+ years, you guys, some of you who are new didn't have to go through this, but the rest of you who have been here have seen me come back time after time with Mr. Hunt, with his Excel spreadsheets to talk about the pay disparity that we have. And you have listened, and I believe you have all listened with an open mind, and I believe that you've all wanted to make a difference. But we were in a hole already, and then you've been trying to work to get us out of that. And I understand every single bit of it. But the problem is, if I don't actively argue and fight on behalf of every single one of them, I'm not only going to lose them because of money, but I'm going to lose them because they no longer work for somebody that they believe in and they trust. People question me all the time, why do I invite them here? It seems like it's probably a bully tactic or a tactic so that people are looking at you, but it's not that. It's because they are this office. I'm the name on the door. They are this office. And I want them to be able to be here to talk to all of you also. Mr. Roth spent most of his day at my office today. He got a tour. He got to see the giant whiteboard that I have with everybody who we've reorganized over the past 2 years to try to be as efficient as possible in terms of how we operate this office. He then sat down with the majority of them who all want to talk to you. And so as time goes on, I'm sending individual emails to invite people at different times to come to meet them, to see what's going on, to see our programming. I made you all a lot of promises when I came here. I told you I was going to find different revenue sources, and I did. One of the first things that I asked you to do was to fund a pre-arrest diversion program, because I believe that having that program means that you're going to get people out of our system, which means we're not paying to prosecute people. Now, we weren't able to do that because the budget didn't allow for it. So then we applied for grants, and $1.7 million later in grants, we brought that in. And we will continue to do that. My grant manager is fantastic at looking for different grants to try to bring in money so that we are subsidized in some other way. But the problem is the need for these individuals is now. When I met with Ms. Labrillo yesterday, part of my frustration was that there is $900,000 that's earmarked for everybody, and I understand that. But right now, they need that. Between December 1st and whenever this money gets paid off, if I lose individuals, they don't get that money back. They don't get paid for something that's sitting in a bank account right now. And this is a reality. This is what they live in. I have been an active part of the budget, Mr. Kenyon, you are correct with that. But every year I've come and I've asked for this amount of money. And I've done it through JPS. I've done it through the committee process. I've done it in every which way I possibly can. And the problem is we didn't get anywhere forward. But what I do see happening, and what I know you see happening, is that the unions actively come in and they negotiate with our office, and we fight for the county board, but there are equity raises throughout Kane County that are happening. It's not 1,300 people not getting equity raises. There are a good portion of people who are getting equity raises because the union is coming in and fighting for them. I am that union for them. I am fighting for them. So I brought this the same way that any single union has done so to get this money from all of you or through the budget process. I'm doing it through labor management in the same way. Now, do I expect you to pass this and go over to finance, and on finance for this to be passed to exec and it go to exec in a month, I have all of this money? Absolutely not. I want the discussion started. I do believe that the great work that Ms. Labrillo is doing right now of looking at this is a portion of it. But as she said, one of the few departments that is so far behind is my office. We are statutorily required to do our job. And I want to say to Ms. Molina, you are absolutely right. The county board has been a great partner to the state's attorney's office in many other ways. And I don't want that to go unacknowledged. I was speaking with our former state's attorney, who told me that my ability to get new positions for the office when he had tried for year after year after year was astounding. And he actually joked and said that I must have some sort of magic pixie dust. I told him, no, it's because I have a board that understands what it is that we need. And so I don't want that to go unacknowledged, that we have gotten additional staff. Those 5 child predators that we have been able to arrest was because you all believed in me that bringing in an investigator, a forensic analyst, and prosecutors to focus on the worst of the worst in our community was the right way to go. But that happened because of a lot of discussions, and it happened because we looked at the budget, and it happened because we figured out a way to do it. All that I ask for now is to start that conversation with this office about how we can get internal equity and how we can all move forward as a county towards external equity. The best way for me to be able to do this is to do it by coming to labor management, because that is what labor management is supposed to do. Labor management not only has to review all the union contracts, but they also have to review all the non-union pay. This is the conversation that I want for all of you to have with us. I know, and Mr. Tepe, we had a brief conversation beforehand because I did not speak with you about this before. I know that there's a concern with how this happened, and it looks like what I'm trying to do is just shove something through that's for the state's attorney's office and the state's attorney's office alone. I don't want that. I don't know if you remember about 1.5 years ago when I first started really pitching towards equity raises. We also did the research to see how we can increase the revenue here. We did the research to figure out what the sales tax would bring in. We brought the research to see what the gas tax would bring in. We talked about what it would mean if our taxes for our land were increased. We did all of the research to come up with something else that wasn't just for us, but was for the entirety of the county. Because that's the partners that we want to be with this county. All that I'm asking for right now is for us to sit down and start to have that conversation to find out how we can find something for these individuals. Because I can tell you, as the state's attorney, I've been doing everything I can to give them every non-monetary benefit they could possibly have. And I know you heard me say this before, but I give them a day off for their birthday. I give them a day off for shopping in December. They have a day off every 3 months. I'm very good with comp time. I'm very good with, if it's a beautiful day out, saying everybody, you should go ahead and leave an hour early. But the problem is they barely use their vacation time and their sick time in the way that they should, because we have been so overworked for a long time. The positions that you gave us allowed them to have that breath at that point, because now they spread their work out throughout other people. That it was the first step, was to take away the overwork portion. Now they still have a whole lot of that, but it's much better than it was. And that is thanks to all of you here at the county board, because you listened. And I don't want you to think that I don't believe you listened. But now there's a different portion to it, because despite spreading the work out, I'm still losing them all the time. And I'm losing great people to go to other places. This is the serious conversation we have to have, because the state's attorney's office has a vital role in this county. As you all know, we are your partners in everything civil. We are your partners, everything county board. We are the people doing the criminal cases, the traffic offenses, all the way up to homicide offenses. We need to make sure that these individuals back here are compensated to the best of the ability that we can, but it all starts with a conversation. That's what I would like to happen as a result of this resolution. As a result of this resolution, you can vote it down. You can move it towards finance. You can say we're going to do an evaluation. There's many different options. The tail end of all of this, instead of giving whatever amount it is that I'm asking for, you could say we're actually going to double it for her because she's such a great arguer. I highly doubt that's going to happen, but you can also say, well, it's reasonable. We're going to do this for the next year with the goal of doing this for the second year and this for the third year. But we need answers for them. 100%, we need answers for them. And while we're going to get a portion of this money between May and July, that's not going to help a person like Michelle Neerman, whose last day is Tuesday. It's not going to help for the person who tendered their resignation earlier this week, and it's not going to happen for the few people that have already lost since December 1st. This resolution is how we start discussions. I'm asking you to join me in that discussion to give them answers and a hope for something that's going to happen in the future. I'm open for any other questions that you'd like to give for me.
Sounds like that was for the jury. Mr. Tepe, before I recognize you, is there any comments from this? Ms. Molina, you have your hand up. I'd like to recognize the members of this committee first. Yes, Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'd like to thank the state's attorney for bringing this item up for discussion in our Labor Management Committee. I've sat on the county board for a decade, and not once had it been told to us that employees excluded from recognizing bargaining units were also being reviewed by this committee. So I thank you for bringing that to our attention. And in that same vein, I would request, if it's the committee's decision, to continue that section 2-307 in our code, that we ask Ms. Labrillo to provide not only the Human Resources Committee, but also the Labor Management Committee with updates regarding the wage equity study that's that's going on now. Now, business at hand regarding this resolution, I think that the discussion has started. I think the discussion has been going on kind of in silos with all our different departments and all our different committees. So if this is the place to have those conversations about wages, and I take, I'm happy to be part of that discussion and welcome it to our committee. But I guess business at hand, this resolution, I just request that we table it indefinitely and that we just continue this conversation. So
Thank
that
you.
would be my motion. Thank you.
There's a motion on the table. Do I have a second for that motion?
Question,
Yes.
is this to table it or to postpone it to a?
This particular resolution, I would request we table it indefinitely. I think it's part of a larger discussion and a larger resolution that's going to take forward, that's going to take place in the next coming months.
And in the next couple of weeks. There's a motion.
Well, can we discuss it? Because once we move to table it, there's no discussion, right?
Correct.
So I agree. I think the discussion has started. I'm excited what's transpiring. I think that that it, just like Ms. Molina said, I think it belongs in this committee, so that passing it on to a larger committee like finance that has let's say we get 3 pages of things and everything gets mixed in. By the time we're done an hour and a half in finance, it's sort of like a brain freeze after that. So I would welcome that it stay here. And on that, I will say that I will second that we table it, but we continue discussion here as if that's.
So just as an FYI, motion to table indefinitely means it's killed. So then it's done. We don't have another labor management unless something else is set. So
So then what we need to do is, that would be my question.
But
I have to ask
the
advice from
reason,
the-
Excuse me, Ms. Molina.
yeah, my intent to table this particular resolution is that I don't think this is the beginning or the end of what we're looking to address here as a committee. Ms. Labrillo is bringing forward a larger portion of the study, which I think can be included in a resolution. This committee can meet at any time that our chair decides to meet and provide updates. So because this resolution is dissolved does not mean that the conversation is dissolved. I'm just looking to move forward with our business at hand. And this particular resolution, I think, is something that we can just decide to just table for now. So that would be my motion and why it would be tabled indefinitely. Thank you.
You have seconded, Mr. Caius, confirming your second? No? Mr. Kenyon? No?
Sure, no, I'm not. We need the money, they need to be paid, and that's the bottom line.
That's not the dispute, Mr. Kenyon. I apologize. I guess I'm not being as straightforward as I assumed I was. I'm not disputing that the state's attorney's office needs to get paid. I'm not disputing that they deserve a living wage. My dispute is that this particular resolution only addresses a certain amount of people in our county, and it's part of a larger umbrella of employees that we are responsible for. So if I'm happy to table this for 30 days, but that means that we're only discussing this finite group of people. And I, as a county board member, would prefer to discuss everyone as a whole equally.
Madam Chair.
We certainly need to do that. Ms. Gums has her hand up.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, I don't want to table this indefinitely. I've listened to everybody's thoughts. Certainly something that, the other day I was pretty passionate. I'm still pretty passionate about this, and I want to clarify something for everyone. When the state's attorney is coming to us with these requests, we certainly as a board will, anticipate the other departments are going to be coming to us. From my perspective, this is a bigger conversation that has to happen, and I know that everybody here understands that. I would perhaps make an amended motion to evaluate this. I don't want it to be tabled indefinitely.
Could I, Madam Chair?
Okay.
As part of the discussion, Ms. Gums, can you move to just postpone it until we meet again?
Till a date certain.
Till a
Yes,
date
so
certain.
that's.
Yeah.
The date certain be our next meeting, since we don't know.
Yeah, Gums
That's-
here, and
Yes.
really quick, the reason I think I'm better with that is because, as Ms. Molina and Ms. Labrillo pointed out, mid-March, I think it was. So that's a couple of weeks from now. I would be comfortable with that,
So just to clarify right now I'm putting my state's attorney for the county board,
That's the
not my,
difficulty you also heard.
You
so
Guys.
legally, I believe you just have to agree with me. So this is. Burn. So this is where we're at right now. There was a motion to table indefinitely that has not received a second.
That's
If
correct.
that's correct, then that motion has failed. Ms. Gums then has put forth a motion to table for a date certain, and we have to set that date certain. Which
And-
that,
Hold on, but we have not gone through the entire committee yet to find out if everyone is agreed to table it. We can also ask Ms. Molina to change her motion.
well, so right now, just procedurally, go in Robert's Rules of Order regards to
I'm there.
this. Ms. Gums has made a motion. That motion is to table it to a date certain, which we can set that date.
Yes,
At
absolutely.
this point, we just have to see if there's a second to her motion or not.
Point of order, my motion to table indefinitely was seconded by Mr. Caius. I can make a friendly motion. Who did
Mr.
second it?
Mr. Caius said
I did not second it.
I apologize. I understood you seconded and then you continued on with your discussion. I'll remove my motion to table indefinitely. But I guess Robert's Rules of Order again, the motion would be to table to a date set forward by our, I guess my point is this resolution as it stands, I feel needs to be amended to include a lot of other departments. So if our committee is welcome to amending this particular resolution to include the study that Ms. Labrillo is putting forth, I'll be welcome. I'll welcome to table this until a date set by our chair when that is ready to be reviewed by this committee again.
Gums would second that motion.
All right, so it has been seconded.
Do we have to have a date then, or is there
Yes,
some
we're
way
gonna-
to
yes, we're
postpone
gonna-
it without an exact?
No, we're
No,
gonna
we have to
set
have
a
a date.
date right now. We're about ready to set a date.
Okay, hold on a sec. Before doing this,
Table or postpone?
it is, right now, we have a motion is set to a date certain. I don't know, Ms. Molina, if your intent was to amend our resolution or if that's something that you want to do at another time. But if it's a motion to set to a date certain, we could set that, we can have a discussion, but then we need a vote.
Right, and Mrs. Moss, I guess my intent is that although I agree with what you're putting forward in this resolution, we can't afford your finance structure that you set forth without having what Ms. Labrillo is bringing forth for the rest of the county. So I'm willing to review this resolution again, but it has to include the finalized study and the finalized recommendations that Ms. Labrillo is setting for the rest of the county. So we may table this, place it on the table until the next meeting. But at that point, I'm expecting Ms. Labrillo's input on this resolution.
I understand. So it looks like there's no motion to amend the resolution. This resolution is, there's now a motion and a second to set it to a date certain, understanding the discussion that Ms. Molina has indicated she would like to have along with the information from Ms. Labrillo. Just making sure to follow the rules. Is there any discussion on this before a vote?
Yes.
That would be that would be the chair's.
Well, I understand. I'm
you.
just trying to make sure we're
Thank you.
staying down the procedure.
We have this procedure, but thank you so much for your help. I support it. Ms. Labrillo, before we choose a date certain, we're right now at the end of February. And I was wondering to keep this conversation active and current and thoughtful. And to your point, and right now I have with all due respect, there is a challenge between two hats that you're wearing, Ms. Mosser. So sometimes you're representing as a labor negotiator and sometimes you're a state's attorney. So it's.
I actually think they're right in line with each other.
Can we get another opinion?
Yes, Ms. Neerman agrees. You're welcome.
So when will you have adequate information to bring to not a conclusion, but just an update, an appropriate update?
I'd recommend aligning that with the April Human Services Committee, which would be the second Wednesday of April.
So that is April 11th.
Oh,
What would aligning mean?
As in, I will.
Oh, no,
be
I'm sorry, April
preparing-
12th. That's April 12th.
I will be preparing a report for that committee as well. So somewhere in that time period or in that week would to me be appropriate for us to have a full report available.
How is April 14th for everybody? Which is
Friday.
a little bit 2 weeks,
I'm sorry?
a little over 2 weeks.
Oh, that's-
No, I'm sorry.
Talking 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
It's a long time.
That is a long time.
It's a long time.
A lot of details to be discussed.
It's a date certain that I feel we're comfortable with to complete this discussion.
I'm sorry, Ms. Molina, you were cutting out in and out.
Sorry, I said it's a date certain that I think we would be able to complete this discussion and have an actual resolution to provide. And so I would agree with that April date.
Okay, so
As
that,
the seconder comes, I am comfortable with the April date, although not happy, but comfortable with that date.
the conversation can be brought forward to other committees as a point of conversation of information.
Right.
And it can continue on through those next 6 weeks. All right, we have a motion to, yes, Mr. Kenyon.
and we have a real problem to fix, and we have to tell these people, our people, that we want to fix it. And I don't know how far we want to kick the can down the road, and I don't know how much time we need, but we got to fix it pretty soon.
Thank you.
Well, I think
And then-
6
And
weeks.
you want the county to function, everybody wants to fix it. April's a long time. And to my, I don't know, if you can't hurry it up, but we need to assure our people that we want to see that they get what they deserve.
Yes. Mr.
Everybody here,
But-
nobody's disagreeing with that. I'll bet you a
Speaking,
dollar.
speaking one farmer to another, or well, I have been on a
We
farm
want to
before.
find the money.
We have to have the tools in order to make those decisions.
There.
And if we don't have the information, which will not be available until the 14th or the 12th, then.
Although there are
waiting for
two
the test.
tools right now for you to be able to use. So as Ms. Labrillo said before, there's $900,000 that's sitting in there. She believes that there's a large chunk that's supposed to go to the state's attorney's office. I'm not asking for a large chunk. I'm asking for less of that large chunk, and I can pay them now. In addition to that, there are a lot of positions that are in contingency right now because we stopped the Safety Act. That is money that is earmarked for us if we can actually hire people, which we're having a problem hiring. Those are two tools of immediate money right now that could be given to the state's attorney's office. One is earmarked for us if we can actually hire people, which we're having difficulty doing because of our lack of money. The second part then is a portion of that money that you guys have already said the state's attorney's office will go to. Whether it's 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is, just give it to us now to give them some relief. So to your point, Mr. Caius, there's two tools to pay them now.
We do not have the authority on this board to release that money on this committee. And you understand that, nor can we make appropriate recommendation on how that money is to be released. That is not the process of this.
Right, so
We can move forward with a recommendation for pay equity. We do not know those numbers because that study is not going to be completed until we just found out April 14th or April 11th, when her Human Services Committee is going to be meeting. Until that time comes, as much as we may like to, we have to make sure that the money relief is targeted, appropriate, and fair. And we cannot do that until we get the data.
right, and nobody's arguing with that. The argument merely is Ms. Labrillo has made estimates that I'm not asking for her to stick to until, she obviously has the final one. But at some point, it was stated that there was the 262,000 of the 900,000 that looked to go to the state's attorney's office. I'm not asking for 262,000. I would like something less than the 262,000 because that was the belief of what the state's attorney's office should have. That is a tool now. The contingency money is just sitting there waiting for us to hire people. If that is released into that budget, that money goes towards equity, which then helps out with internal equity. I'm just giving you suggestions right now. And if you would like me to go before JPS with a resolution on those, if you would like to set this over for a week and I file another resolution, I will do that. These are tools.
Point of order.
Yes.
Aren't we discussing whether we're going to, don't we have a motion on the table to
We do.
table this?
We have a motion to table to a date certain. And then the
Yes.
point was brought up by Mr. Kenyon about we have to give them an answer and April seems far away. You said, well, we don't have any tools. I am discussing what I think could be two tools for discussion.
And the two tools are, once again, I'm a little slow.
You are never
I
so, Mr.
never argue
Caius.
with attorneys. Doesn't pay. Yes, go ahead. So the two tools are that portion of this is already in the discretion of the state's attorney?
No, so it's the county board has this but has set aside $900,000 for the first year for internal equity adjustments. The estimate that has been put out is that the state's attorney's office would receive maybe 262,000.
And where did that estimate come from? I think.
Yeah, I missed that.
Did I hear that today?
That was in past meetings, and I believe that's something that Ms. Labrillo had said before.
That was, I believe, back in December in a conversation that I had with Ms. Mosser, in which I made very clear that it was an exceptionally rough estimate. And as well as the discussion we had yesterday, it's simply not accurate enough to release any of those funds without compromising the potential ability to do the funding accurately at the end. That would be my concern, that once we reach that first draft As we will discuss in April, then that would be a more firm estimate. And while I would not make final allocations until it receives board approval and we have those second meetings with everyone, that would be a better estimate to rely on. Back in December, when I gave this estimate, I made clear that that was not money that could be spent at this time. It was an extremely rough estimate based on my initial funding when I did that very quick study in the summer.
And that was never brought to my knowledge to any committee at the board level for that discussion and approval.
No. And what I'm just doing is answering a question because I like to answer questions. And if somebody wants an answer to something, I will research it. Mr. Kaya said that we need tools. That's 2 potential tools. I'm not asking for a vote on that right now. I am asking for you guys to consider that in the discussions. Those are 2 possible ways to do something sooner rather than later for the people of this office.
The Safety Act is going to be decided, I would assume, sometime in March, from what my reading is.
No, it's going to be argued in March, the second or third week, and then it is going to be decided at some point thereafter. The Supreme Court has said that they will make this as an expedited proceeding, but expedited doesn't mean that it's going to come back in March. We're hoping April, but the reality may be May, it may be June. So arguments happen, then they go back and they write their drafts, and then they submit the drafts to each other, and then there's dissenting drafts, and there's the majority draft, and it goes back and forth through this entirely long process that I'm sure none of you would like to hear any more about.
So it's coming.
Yes,
It's coming.
I cannot tell you when.
I see Mr. Caius and Mr. Sanchez, but Ms. Gums has her hand up.
And me.
You know what? They can go first. I'm finishing something in my brain.
Very good. Mr. Caius?
Caius again, then what you're saying is that we have the tools, but we're not sure what the tool is because I would ask you to give Ms. Labrillo the same thing, the same leeway you're asking or expecting from the Supreme Court or whoever's doing the final thing on the Safety Act, that she's not certain about it. We will be almost certain about it by April. So that's the time that when the tools are available, that sounds like that's the same thing, that we don't know when that court's going to act. We don't know exactly what the numbers are going to be until we get the final from Ms. Labrillo,
I
regardless of
understand.
your conversation.
No, I understand.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that
I would argue then I'm going to stop arguing with you, your attorney. We'll argue with Mr. Kenyon that, yes, I think we should do this fast, but let's get to it.
They have to know we want to do it.
We want to do
We can't
it.
just-
I think that is,
April is a long time away.
I think that's clear that is
Gums.
the intent of this, but it has to be done in the proper procedure. Ms. Gums?
Gums, quick question here. Nothing's preventing us from doing something sooner. Like we could call a special meeting kind of thing. I know that might sound like a dumb question, but
That is not the point of the motion that's on the table right now.
I understand that there's a motion for this to be on the 14th of April. But my question is, there's nothing preventing us from
From another committee, no.
calling another meeting prior to that.
that's correct.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
absolutely correct.
That was my
That's
question.
absolutely correct.
But
Absolutely
we find out sooner than that. Let's
Thank
go.
you. That was my point. Thank you, Mr. Caius.
And we'll
I was
ask.
trying to say it, it just did not come out.
Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in listening to the conversation, a couple of things occurred to me. If my memory serves me correctly, because I know there is some hesitance to get ahead of the process of the equity adjustment study. I believe we did do something for the finance department. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we kind of fast tracked their section in a sense to help retain some of their employees. So just something to recall in the conversation. It also raises the question for me of the total allocation that we have for the equity adjustments. Will it be enough when we get the study back? If the study says we need 5 million and we only have 2 million, is our plan to then raise it that extra amount, or are we going to be more or less held down at a lower number and have to figure out a way to divvy it out? And then as an alternative, perhaps is it reasonable to even try to allocate this money right now through COVID savings, knowing that in, April or so, we'll have all the accurate numbers for that from the equity study. And then if some budget transfers need to occur back into the COVID savings fund from this equity, could we do that as a short-term fix for the problem?
That is
So
not
I'm
the
sorry,
rec-
that was a lot, but just the
I'll
thoughts I had.
follow you. That is not the recommendation that this committee can make to be able to do budget transfers. We can simply recommend what the compensation would be. As far as the difference in amounts, that was a smaller amount with the finance. It was expedited. I think we're going to be expediting this pretty quickly. Not quick enough. And again, the frustration you are all feeling it's come to a head right now. You have a spokesperson who's trying to do it as eloquently as she possibly can, and it is succeeding. But it has been your last equity adjustment, external equity adjustment that my research was able to share with me was done 29, 10, and 11. You're making equity between Kendall County, which was paying you, I think, from what I've heard, 25% more than what your wages were, and you were put on par with Kendall County. It has stayed flat except for CPI during this period of time. I have been in leadership for 2 years now. For 2 years, we've making great strides with this. And we continue to work in every effort we can, but I understand your frustration because you need it now. You want it now. We've just gotten out of COVID. We've just done a myriad of other things, but this has been continually worked upon, talked about, and this is brand new for the Kane County Board.
This one.
So I understand your frustrations. I understand your anger and your anxiety and your concerns. But April 14th, I know it seems like forever and a day, but I think it's going to be a way that we can make a recommendation based on data and fact, and it can be held up by this committee with a recommendation through finance, through human services, whatever appropriate committee, or this committee actually reports directly to executive. That is my understanding. So through that, we can move this quickly through, but we need to know exactly through the research that has already been done and balancing that with the research that is currently being done, which has never been done in, I think, 20 years. We're working quickly. 20 years ago, I think this was done. Just like the redrawing of precincts 20 years ago. So I beg you to have patience for another 6 weeks so we can have appropriate salaries offered to you at the 900,000. We've guaranteed, hopefully, the board approves every budget every year, additional 900,000, total of $2.7 million has been promised. While I'm here, I told Ms. Mosser, I will fight for that $900,000, and if it needs to be increased, we'll have to find a way, but I don't want to have to make cuts to other departments to satisfy this need. All should be brought up.
Can I call for the question then? Or were we-
Yes, please.
Question, calling for the question. Caius.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Pirog,
Yes.
approved.
Yes, sir. And then I'd like to read a comment, or actually 2-309, some from my research that I was doing yesterday. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, thank you. Tepe here. I'm not on this committee and
Microphone, please, Mr. Tepe.
I'm not on this committee. And I had initially promised Mr. Kenyon that I'd be quiet, but I'm obviously not going to be able to live up to that. And I primarily like to talk to the people that are in the audience. Had I known you were all going to be here, I would have dressed better and been more in concert. But I wanted to share with you that several of us were elected to this board 2.5 years ago. and more were elected just 6 months ago. And since then, we've faced a lot of challenges and difficulties, COVID just being a small part of it, but a big part of it being the finances. Because up until we were elected, the whole approach had been to not increase taxes and to use all of those funds to make the people in power look like they were doing a phenomenal job for the taxpayers. What they have done has created situations like this. We not only have to deal with the inequity, I've also been through your offices. Okay. My wife does not allow my office to get that messy.
What? Cramped, not messy.
And if it gets anywhere near looking like that, she closes the doors, you know. So there's a lot that we have to deal with. And the key thing is that we need you. We need you not only to be a part of this great county, because I brag about how well it works together ever since I've been here, and you're a big part of it. And so is Jamie. Forgot her name for a moment.
That's fair.
But the key thing is that we're going to need your help because we're going to be out there looking for more money. And I expect you to dress up as nicely as you've done today and help us go door to door. Thank you.
Well, I think you've been giving some marching orders. So I have one more comment I would like to make. The document that I'm looking at right now was an ordinance last written in 1984, and it was the earliest document that I could find in my limited scope of research to talk about the Labor Management Committee. And on point number 2-309, it was signed by Frank R. Miller. He was the chairman of the county board. 2-309. The committee, meaning this committee, is authorized on behalf of the county board to enter into memorandums of understanding with the elected officials relating to all activities under the act in order to promote harmony, uniformity among all employees of the county and/or elected or appointed officials. Now, whether or not this has been amended in future ordinances or implemented into, codified into the county code, I don't know, but these are words to live by. It is the approach that we have taken as a board to work in harmony and uniformity and collaboration with all of you. We will continue to make every effort to do so, and it is our responsibility, all of us, that if we find that we are not working that way, to come up and to speak politely, firmly, and honestly to each other to make sure that we steer in that right direction. So I applaud you. I applaud for your courage. I thank Ms. Mosser for bringing this to us. I feel greatly saddened that some of you have had to leave for a variety of different reasons. I wish you all great success in whatever journeys, future journeys and work opportunities you're going to have. But I also celebrate the opportunity of being able to work alongside you for as long as I'm able to keep this seat. And it's a privilege to do so. So I believe we're going to reconvene unless we need to do it sooner. And if the opportunity presents itself until April 14th, if there's nothing else.
Madam Chair, Gums,
Yes.
I just had a really quick last statement. I just want to thank this committee for doing what we've been doing. The last couple of days have been lengthy phone conversations. And I look forward, I can't see the gallery, so I don't know who's all there, but I look forward to seeing you. I think it's in 2 weeks. And thank you for coming. And again, thank this committee for our thoughtful conversations that we've been having.
Okay, we've seconded the motion
I would move we adjourn today until we can meet again,
till April 14th,
for sure.
Maybe.
for sure.
Yeah. Second.
Second, clerk, please call the roll.
No.
Gums,
Aye.
Caius,
Or, oh, aye.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Pirog,
Yes.
approved.
Okay, very good.